What we love, we fear to lose. And what we fear to lose, we often hurt first. Eric Fromm. There's a certain kind of person who, when you give them love, safety, and your whole heart, doesn't respond the way you expect. Instead of moving closer, they step away. Instead of speaking words of affection, they find reasons to disappear. They're not bad. They're not unfeeling. They simply carry an internal alarm system that blares every time emotions get too close. This is the avoidant. Have you experienced this? Those moments when they make you believe, maybe this time will be different, only to go cold as if you were never there. You feel you have to do something, say the right thing, act at the right time just to keep them from leaving. And you keep trying until you lose yourself in the process. The truth is, avoidants rarely chase anyone, but there are rare, almost fleeting moments when they turn around and seek you out. Not because you suddenly changed them, and not because they realized you're the one. It's because three hidden needs they're even ashamed to admit to themselves happen to collide. If you don't understand these needs, you'll think it's your golden chance and rush in. But if you do understand them, you'll realize it's just a wave, and when it passes, things may go right back to the way they were. In this video, I'm taking you inside the mind of the avoidant. We'll break down the three forbidden needs that make them stop running and start chasing, and more importantly, will you really want to live the rest of your life inside this game? If you've ever loved an avoidant, you'll know this feeling, those brief moments when they open up, like a beam of sunlight passing through a room and then vanishing. 1 minute, you feel the connection, their eyes soften, their voice slows, everything feels warmer. But the next minute, they lean back, change the subject, or disappear altogether. You're left confused, wondering, what did I do wrong? The truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You just happened to touch their optimal arousal zone, a space that is incredibly narrow, fragile, and easy to disrupt. This concept comes from the optimal arousal theory, introduced in 1908 by psychologists Yerkes and Dodson. They discovered that humans perform and connect best when emotional stimulation is moderate, not too low to cause boredom, and not too high to cause overwhelm. Most people have a fairly wide golden zone. We can tolerate many ups and downs in a day without fearing collapse. For avoidants, however, this zone is as thin as a thread. Their nervous systems were wired early in life to detect and avoid potential emotional harm. A hand lingering too long, a question like, "What are you thinking?" or an expectant look, all can trigger an internal red alert. To them, this isn't care, it's danger. The irony is that while they run from emotional intensity, there's a quiet hunger inside. Living too long in emotional numbness leaves them craving a spark, something to make their heart beat faster. They want to feel, but they fear experiencing. I often compare them to a sleeping volcano. When you place them in the optimal arousal zone, internal pressure starts to build. At first, it's exciting, a sense of aliveness. But with their sensitive nervous systems, staying there too long is like keeping a volcano about to erupt without an outlet. Without a timely release valve, they'll find a way to break the connection, create conflict, pull away, or vanish. That's why so many who have dated avoidants tell the same story. Everything was going well, intimacy growing. Then suddenly, coldness, distance, no explanation. It's not because they've stopped caring, it's because they're overloaded. So, if you want to maintain connection without triggering their flight response, you need an unusual rhythm, the thrill to safety loop. Give them just enough emotional stimulation to feel alive, then intentionally step back to let them cool down. This isn't the silent treatment or neglect, it's an intermission. For example, after a night of deep connection, dinner together, meaningful conversation, lingering eye contact instead of prolonging it, you let the evening end early, or you're the one to wrap up the conversation first. This is like knowing exactly when to close the pressure valve so the volcano doesn't erupt. Here's the hard part. The instinct of an anxious or deeply loving partner is to extend the connection for as long as possible. We believe the more time we spend together, the stronger the bond will be. With avoidance, that logic backfires. The longer the intensity lasts, the more threatened they feel, and the more they'll look for an exit. This requires a refined sensitivity, knowing when they're at the peak of optimal arousal and about to cross into overload. A glance suddenly shifting away, a change in tone, or an abrupt topic change. These are all signals to step back. This isn't about playing power games, it's about keeping their nervous system feeling safe long enough for the connection to grow. When you understand this mechanism, you stop thinking they don't care, and you begin to see clearly they're fighting against their own internal alarm system. Keeping an avoidant in the optimal arousal zone is hard enough, but it's still not enough to make them truly turn around and chase you. Even if you've perfected the thrill to safety rhythm, they still have another invisible filter, a hidden standard they themselves may not even be fully aware of, to decide who's worth stepping closer to. This brings us to forbidden need number 2, the Phantom X Goldilocks zone. When you hear unforgettable X, you probably picture one specific person, a clear memory. But for avoidants, the story is far more complicated. They don't hold on to the whole image of a single person from the past. Instead, they have a Frankenstein X, stitched together from the best moments of multiple past relationships. One gave them warmth, another gave them independence, another left them with a sense of mystery, all combined into an ideal no real human can fully match. Whether by design or by habit, this Frankenstein X becomes a shield. Because no one is perfect enough to meet the standard, they never have to risk giving their whole heart. It's a self-protection mechanism, keeping their emotional doors half closed to avoid danger. And here's where the Goldilocks zone comes in. In astronomy, it's the just right distance from a star for life to exist. Not too hot to burn, not too cold to freeze. In the avoidance mind, the Goldilocks zone is the range of traits and behaviors you must fall into to feel just right to them. Just enough. Like their Frankenstein X. That means not too warm, not too cold. Too much affection feels suffocating. Too little kills interest. Not too predictable, not too mysterious. Predictable becomes boring, but too much mystery triggers insecurity. Independent but still accessible. You need your own life, but not total emotional closure. If you happen to naturally hit these notes, you step into the just right zone, the space where the avoidant feels safe, yet curious to explore. There's a story I'll never forget. It happened about a year ago, at a small coffee shop in my neighborhood in Austin, Texas. I usually go there on Sunday mornings to read and have my coffee. That day, I noticed a woman named Emma. I knew her name because we'd exchanged a few words before. Emma had the kind of smile that makes you want to smile back. A few months earlier, I often saw her with a man. Then, suddenly, she was always alone. No more hushed conversations in the corner. No more hours spent lingering over lattes. Just her laptop, and a notebook. But that morning, Emma looked different. Not the kind of post-breakup sadness people expect. She wore a light linen dress, her hair in a loose bun, and on the table were a few printed film photos. When I asked, she said she'd been taking a pottery class on Tuesday nights and spending weekends baking bread with some new friends she'd met at the local farmer's market. On Instagram, I happened to see those same moments. Her hands shaping clay, a golden brown loaf fresh from the oven, and bursts of laughter at an outdoor cafe. No cryptic captions, no sad quotes. Then one morning, while waiting for my coffee, I overheard her telling a friend. Her ex, silent for months, had suddenly texted her, "You look different lately." I smiled because I knew exactly why. At that moment, Emma was squarely in his Goldilocks zone. Warm but not overly intimate, a radiant smile, but not one meant for him alone. Just unpredictable enough he didn't know who her new friends were, or if one was someone special. Independent, yet connected, a rich life, but not a closed door. The result? Curiosity. First, he peeked at her Instagram a couple of times, then more often, until one day, he found an excuse to reach out. The thing is, Emma hadn't been trying to make him come back. She was simply living her life fully, and that the balance of warmth, mystery, and independence is exactly what pulled him toward her again. But here's the catch. The Goldilocks zone isn't something you can sustain forever without a cost. If you keep playing the role of someone just warm enough, just mysterious enough, just independent enough, you'll eventually tire of the constant balancing act. Especially if your natural self is deeply affectionate, you'll feel like you're living inside a too small mold. It's crucial to understand that the Goldilocks zone only explains why they start paying attention again, not why they'd maintain a deep relationship. Even if you're squarely in that zone, need number 1, optimal stimulation, still applies. If emotions become too intense or last too long, they'll retreat again. That's why so many people who've gotten an avoidant back, lose them again. They think, I've cracked the code, but forget that this code demands constant balance, a balance that often runs counter to your own emotional needs. If need number 1 is the door you must carefully open, then need number 2 is the feeling of familiarity that makes them take a step inside. But there's still one more door, the hardest to open, and the one that decides whether they stay, the illusion of control. Before we get there, pause and ask yourself, are you unknowingly trying to become someone's Frankenstein ex just to keep them around? And if so, how long can you live like that? If need number 1 is the heartbeat that keeps them connected without tipping into overwhelm, and need number 2 is the familiar image that sparks their curiosity, then need number 3 is the key that decides whether they'll actually step into the relationship. And this is also the hardest need to reach, the illusion of control. Avoidants often have an extremely strong internal locus of control, meaning they believe every outcome in life is the result of their own decisions and action. While this might sound positive, in love it becomes armor they always wear, because they believe only when they're in control are they truly safe. Deep down, they still crave the feeling of being able to lean on someone, to share part of that control and responsibility. But their nervous system equates opening up with losing control, a fixed equation. Letting someone close equals losing freedom. And when they feel themselves being pulled in too far, their survival instinct is to retreat abruptly. I remember one autumn evening in Austin when I caught up with Evan, an old friend who had once been in a relationship with an avoidant woman. By then, they'd been broken up for months. I joked, "Did she ever reach out to you again?" Evan laughed. "Yeah, but not right away. It happened after I did something completely different from my usual pattern. He explained that he used to be the one who always texted first, who always kept the conversation going often until she started slowing her replies. But one day was different. They were texting about a movie. The conversation was still fun, and yet Evan ended it first. He simply wrote, "Okay, let's talk about it tomorrow. I have to head out now." And then, silence. No follow-up from him. 2 days later, she was the one who started the conversation. Her tone was lighter, curious, even a little playful. From that moment on, Evan noticed that whenever he didn't try to maintain constant contact, she became more proactive. This might sound simple, but it hits right at the avoidance psychology. When you pull back a bit, they feel free to choose. No pressure to reply instantly, no sense that someone is pulling at them, and it's exactly then that they feel safe enough to lean closer. I often call this the illusion of control because in reality, you're still shaping the rhythm of connection, but they experience it as if they're the ones deciding. Here's the problem. Many people in relationships with avoidance do the opposite. They hold on to moments of connection tightly, afraid that if they let go too soon, the other person will drift away for good. But in truth, it's the lack of space that drives the avoidant away faster. Another example. I once witnessed a couple in New Orleans. During a date, the man ended the evening early, saying he needed to prepare for an early morning run. The avoidant woman seemed surprised at first, but within a week, she was the one texting to ask him out for dinner. Why? Because when you allow them to end a conversation or meeting on their own terms, they remain in their safe position. But when you're the one to end it first, you create just enough of a gap for them to want to fill it. It's important to note, the illusion of control isn't a manipulative game. It's about creating a safe environment for the avoidant, a place where they feel they're still holding the wheel, but safe enough to let you in. The difference lies in intent. If you do this to control them, you'll burn out or grow bitter when you don't get the results you expect. But if you do it from a grounded place, understanding that relationships need space to grow, then the illusion of control becomes a tool for maintaining a healthy connection. Looking at all three forbidden needs together, you see the full picture. Optimal stimulation. They need enough emotional spark to feel alive, but not so much that it overwhelms them. Goldilocks zone. They're drawn to what's just familiar enough, yet still fresh. Illusion of control. They need to feel free to choose, even when you're guiding the pace. Only when these three circles overlap does the avoidant pause their running and start chasing. But even if you can create that moment, the real question is, do you want to live in that overlap for the rest of your life? Because maintaining it means constantly adjusting yourself, holding back your own emotional needs, and living in a delicate balance. That's not stability, and it's certainly not a sustainable foundation for everyone. If you've been there, ask yourself, are you trying to meet their 3 needs? Or are you slowly abandoning your own? When you understand each forbidden need individually, you see that each one has its own pull on the avoidant, a brief moment of connection that doesn't overwhelm them, a touch of familiarity that sparks curiosity, a sense of free choice that makes them feel safe. But if you stop at just one need, the effect is usually fleeting, like a single spark in the dark that quickly fades. The fascinating thing is that when all 3 needs line up in the same window of time, everything changes. The spark is no longer a solitary flash. It becomes the convergence point of pressure and desire. I call this the pressure intersection, the moment when desire rises above fear. And in that rare instant, they stop running and start moving toward you. Picture 3 circles: optimal stimulation, the phantom X Goldilocks zone, the illusion of control. When these circles overlap, that intersection acts like a special switch in the avoidant's mind. It awakens something deeper than attraction, a sense of, I can't miss this. And that feeling is strong enough to temporarily override the defensive mechanisms they've relied on for years. I saw this clearly in the story of Emma. After a period of silence, Emma began to reappear on social media, not with attention-grabbing posts, but with snapshots of everyday life that felt vibrant. Her laughing at an outdoor cafe, trying a new bread recipe, or capturing the golden light on a street corner. In every photo, Emma radiated independence, yet still felt warm. No one could say for sure whether she was single or seeing someone new. At the same time, in real life, Emma shifted the rhythm of her interactions with him. Instead of replying instantly to every text and stretching conversations as long as possible, she sometimes ended them first while the mood was still good. Just a simple line, "Okay, let's pick this up tomorrow. I've got something to do." And then, she let him reach out next time. On their own, each action might not seem like much, but through the lens of the 3 circles, optimal stimulation, Emma's sudden silence after a period of presence created a change in his emotional pressure gauge. It broke the flat line he was used to, making him feel like something had slipped away. Phantom X zone. The images on social media showed him a blend of warmth, independence, and mystery, the exact, just right formula that felt familiar yet out of reach. Illusion of control. Ending the conversation first left him with the feeling that he was still in the driver's seat. No pressure, no demands, just a safe space to choose connection. When all 3 factors appeared at once, they didn't just add up, they amplified each other. In that moment, it was like an unexpected gravitational pull. To him, Emma was no longer just someone from the past, but a possibility that was slipping away and that triggered the chase instinct. But here's the part worth thinking about. The pressure intersection is usually short-lived. It's not a sustainable state you can hold forever. To maintain it, you'd have to constantly adjust, keeping stimulation at the right level, maintaining the Goldilocks image, and offering the feeling of control. That can be exhausting if it doesn't align with your true nature. The key point is this: this intersection moment isn't proof of love or evidence they've changed. It's simply a point in time where their defensive systems are temporarily overpowered by the desire to connect. Without a deeper change in how they relate to intimacy, they can still return to their old pattern. And this is where I want to leave you with a bigger question, one that will take us into the next part. Do you truly want to spend your life guarding this intersection, or do you want to find a connection where intimacy isn't a daily nervous system battle? If the pressure intersection is the moment that makes an avoidant stop running and turn back toward you, then the next question is, can you deliberately create that moment? The answer is yes, but it comes with a big caution. You need to think carefully about whether maintaining it is truly compatible with your own nature and emotional needs. Because if you want to call an avoidant back, you can't rely on a lucky moment. You need a strategy not to manipulate, but to calibrate the pace of connection so their nervous system doesn't register you as a threat. And here are the 3 pillars of that strategy, if you truly want to try. 1. Create a thrill-to-safety rhythm. Avoidants both crave and fear emotions. They're like someone standing at the edge of the ocean, wanting to feel the waves, but stepping back the moment they get too strong. The thrill-to-safety rhythm is how you give them a wave just strong enough to make them feel alive, and then immediately let them step back into safe waters. This is not the silent treatment, And it's not withdrawing to punish. It's like inviting them to dance one step forward, one step back, so they never feel cornered. Example. After an evening of deep conversation and laughter, instead of texting again right when you get home, you let the night end at its high point. The next day, you don't message them first thing in the morning. You wait a few hours, maybe even a full day, before picking the thread back up. This creates a natural cycle, high to rest to high to rest. When that rhythm is maintained, the avoidant feels like they've touched emotion without being overwhelmed, and they stay engaged longer. 2. Adjust your personal image. One of the most common mistakes when trying to connect with an avoidant is swinging to extreme, either going fully closed off, becoming an ice wall, or being overly open, predictable, and always available. Both kill attraction. Instead, aim for mystery paired with warmth. This doesn't mean being fake, it means being selective about what you reveal. Example, you might share a personal project you're excited about, but not every detail of your schedule, or on social media. Rather than posting constant updates about everything you do, choose moments that truly capture your essence: a coffee cup on a book-laden table, a smile while cooking with friends, a photo of the sunset in a place you just visited. This shows them that you have a full life outside the relationship, and it's that fullness that makes them curious enough to come closer. 3. Shift control subtly. Avoidants are easily triggered by the feeling of losing their freedom when someone else tries to control the pace or pull them in closer. One of the most powerful keys is to let them feel they can leave at any time. The simple way to do this: end the conversation before it loses energy, not by vanishing, but by leaving a positive aftertaste that makes them want to continue next time. Example, you're talking on the phone, the conversation is still light and fun, but you say, "Hey, I've got to get ready for my morning workout. Let's finish this story tomorrow." You don't drop off abruptly, but you also don't let it run until both of you are drained. When you do this consistently, you create a safe gap, one where they feel no pressure, and paradoxically, that's exactly what makes them want to return. These 3 pillars aren't tricks. They're ways of adjusting to match the emotional biology of the avoidant. But this is also the point where you have to ask yourself, do I want to live in this rhythm forever? Because in the next section, we're going to tackle the most important question, the one that makes every strategy above temporary if you can't answer it. It's the question of boundaries and honesty with yourself. If maintaining this relationship means constantly tuning your emotions, holding back your true needs, and living in a fragile balance, are you sustaining love, or are you losing yourself one small piece at a time? Loving an avoidant can feel like tending a flame in the wind. You have to watch every gust, every spark, every breath, just to keep it alive. But if keeping that flame means sacrificing your own warmth, the real question is no longer, how long will this fire last? But, do I want to keep it this way? Because a healthy relationship doesn't require you to adjust yourself so much that you disappear from your own story. It doesn't demand that you trade your true emotional needs for a few moments of temporary calm. Remember, you don't have to become a master psychologist to be worthy of love. You don't have to live your life in the pressure intersection just to be chosen. And if someone can only stay with you when every condition is perfectly controlled, that's not safe love. It's a fragile arrangement that any change in the wind can destroy. In the end, the real question isn't, how do I get them back? But, can I get back to myself first? Because when you stand firmly in yourself, you'll know. Either they'll meet you in a calmer, steadier place, or you'll be strong enough to walk forward no longer needing them to feel whole.